The following content depicts found footage, audio recordings, and assembled files. The events, locations, and individuals depicted are fictional to ensure anonymity. Viewer discretion is advised. Share your experiences and reactions in the comments. They may be used in future studies of unexplained phenomena.
I never ate candy again after that night. Every Halloween, when I hear a knock at my door, I turn off every light and wait in silence. I still remember her pale face through the glass and the wet sound of her teeth chewing in the dark. I thought it was just a dare. I thought it was just candy, but I was wrong. I was 9 years old, running down Sycamore Street with a plastic mask on my face and an orange bucket in my hand. My friends and I were laughing, showing off our candy haul. I bragged that I wasn't scared of anything. That was the rule among us. The bravest kid got respect for the whole year. When we reached the corner where the streetlights faded, the others got quiet. At the end of the alley stood the ruins of the White House, burnt and abandoned. That's where Mrs. Harlow lived, someone whispered. They say she still watches children who take more candy than they should. I laughed, pretending I didn't feel the cold wind creep under my jacket. They dared me to go there alone. I puffed my chest, nodded, and said I'd prove I wasn't scared. So I walked down that alley, toward the broken porch of the house everyone in Bloomington avoided. The steps creaked as I climbed the ruined porch. A cracked bowl sat on the top step, filled with shiny wrapped pieces. A note lay beside it, written in looping, faded ink. Only one. Promise. I scoffed, grabbed 5, and stuffed them into my pocket with a grin. As I turned to leave, a brittle breeze moved through the hollow windows. I felt eyes on me tight, focused, unblinking. I glanced back and froze. In the black square of a broken window, I saw a pale silhouette. I blinked, and it was gone. My heartbeat raced as I hurried away. My friends cheered when I returned, and I laughed louder than I needed to. We moved on to the next street, but I kept glancing over my shoulder. I didn't know why. That night, I placed the stolen candies in my drawer, proud of my victory. I didn't realize that I had already broken a promise. The next morning, I woke to my mother screaming. I ran downstairs and found our cat on the kitchen floor, foaming and convulsing. I dropped to my knees, calling her name, but her eyes were already glassy. Mom slipped on the wet tiles in the chaos, tumbling down the stairs and crying out in pain. She clutched her arm, twisted at a wrong angle. Dad rushed her to the hospital, and I stood shaking in the doorway, unable to understand why everything felt like it was falling apart. When I went back to my room, I noticed the drawer where I'd hidden the candy slightly open. A sick feeling crawled through me, but I pushed it away. It was just a coincidence, just bad luck. That night, I heard chewing in my dreams. The days that followed rotted from the inside out. It began with the lights flickering every night, buzzing like trapped flies. Then the kitchen appliances died one by one. Mom tried to laugh it off, but I could see fear growing in the corners of her eyes. The worst came on a rainy afternoon. Dad was late coming home. The phone rang, and Mom picked up. I watched her face drain to paper white before she dropped to her knees. Dad had crashed the car. He survived, but barely. Broken ribs, shattered glass, blood everywhere. I listened from the stairs, shaking as the world tilted out of place. That night, I dreamed of chewing. Slow, smacking, syrupy chewing in the dark. I could almost feel hot breath against my ear. When I woke, my tongue tasted like sugar thick, artificial, and wrong. I hadn't eaten a thing. Deep down, I knew. 1 candy, 1 disaster, 4 stolen, 4 punishments, but I didn't dare say it out loud. Not yet. I told myself it would stop. I told myself the nightmare would end on its own. I didn't know the 5th was waiting. I broke down that night, burying my face in my pillow so no one would hear me cry. I wanted to go back. I wanted to undo everything. I just wanted my family safe. While I trembled in bed, I heard a soft knocking against the glass. At first, I hoped it was just a branch or the wind, but the sound came again, steady and deliberate, as though a hand insisted on being let in. My body refused to move. When I finally gathered the courage to look, I turned my head toward the window. She was there. Mrs. Harlow. Gray skin, sunken eyes, lips stretched too wide in a smile that did not belong on any living face. She stared at me through the glass, her breath fogging the window as her grin twitched with hunger. I wanted to scream from my parents, but fear locked my throat. I slid off the bed and curled into the corner, trembling, wishing to disappear. The knocking stopped. I forced myself to look again, and the window was empty, but on the glass, I could still see the streak of her breath slowly fading. By morning, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. For candies, for disasters, and one left. I tore through my room and grabbed the final piece from my drawer, shoving it into my pocket. I begged my parents to listen. Tobeli bye. But they only exchanged worried looks. It's stress, Mom whispered. Nightmares, Halloween stories. No, it was real. I could feel the curse breathing down my neck. I ran outside and threw the candy into the trash. Hours later, I checked again. It was back in my pocket, warm, sticky, pulsing, as if something inside it had a heartbeat. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the next knock, waiting for the chewing, waiting for her. The promise was broken, and Mrs. Harlow wasn't done. I barely slept. After that night, I kept thinking it would end if I just stayed awake, but exhaustion always won. When I finally drifted into sleep, I opened my eyes to find her standing at the foot of my bed. Mrs. Harlow, watching me in the dark. She didn't touch me, she only whispered, as if a voice came from inside my skull. She said I had broken a promise, and a promise must always be repaid. I reached into my pocket without thinking, and there it was. Again the fifth candy, warm and sticky, as if it had grown a pulse. I ran outside, desperate to throw it away, to bury it or burn it. But every time I turned my pockets inside out, the candy returned to my hand. No matter where I tossed it, I would feel it again, the soft, melting weight pressing against my palm. By morning, I understood. It would not let me go. She would not let me go. The price was already chosen, and she was only waiting for me to break. I wasn't afraid of ghosts anymore. I was afraid of candy. The final misfortune came without warning. My mother and father were arguing downstairs, voices sharp enough to slice through the walls. I ran to stop it, terrified of what might come next, but it was already too late. A shelf fell. A broken railing snapped. One moment my father was shouting, and the next he was tumbling down the stairs with no way to stop his fall. I heard the sound of impact and felt something inside me tear apart. When I knelt beside him, shaking and sobbing, I saw her again. Mrs. Harlow. She crouched beside us, smiling at my despair. Her head tilted as though she were admiring a painting. She said I had one candy left. One debt, unpaid. It could be returned in sugar, or in flesh. I screamed for her to stop, but she only leaned closer, her breath sweet and rotten. She promised the pain would stay with me forever, so I would never forget my broken vow. And I never have. I never ate candy again after that night. I grew older, but the memories never dulled. The scent of sugar still turns my stomach, and every Halloween I sit alone in the dark, waiting for it to pass. Sometimes I hear footsteps outside my door. Sometimes I see a reflection in the glass that doesn't belong to me. And sometimes, when the night is still, I hear chewing slow, hungry chewing cake going through the rooms of my house. I keep the lights off. I don't open the door. I don't look out the window. The promise is over, but the curse remains. Mrs. Harlow took her payment and left me with silence and the certainty that she is never far away. One knock, one whisper, one memory of teeth in the dark. Halloween always comes back, and so does she. still hear it, every night. A clock I never plugged in again, chiming at midnight as if it remembers what I did. I don't go near the basement anymore. I'm afraid that when the clock reaches the 13th chime again, it won't come for a memory. This time, it will come for me. I was 11 the last time Halloween felt innocent. My father dropped me at my grandmother's wooden house just outside Bangor, hidden among crooked pine trees that scraped against the windows whenever the wind picked up. The place always smelled like wet timber and old varnish, a scent that clung to my clothes until I got home. Grandma was a small, wrinkled woman with sharp eyes that noticed everything. She uked me, then glanced toward the living room wall, where a massive antique clock loomed like a watchful guardian. Its pendulum swung in long, patient arcs, ticking loud enough to fill the silence between our words. "That belonged to old Murray," she said at dinner, setting a bowl of stew in front of me. "They called her a witch. She made a bargain she couldn't escape." I laughed, thinking she was trying to scare me. But Grandma didn't laugh back. That night, the ticking followed me into my dreams. The next morning, I stood alone before the clock, craning my head as its brass face reflected my distorted features. Grandma appeared behind me, her expression grave. "Never let it strike before midnight," she warned. "Each chime collects a memory. 12 chimes, 12 deaths. Time always takes what it's owed." Her voice trembled. I almost asked whether she believed her own stories, but she was already turning away, muttering a prayer under her breath. I rolled my eyes and spent the day convincing myself she was just lonely and superstitious. By evening, the clock loomed larger than before. Every tick echoed through the pinewood hallway, steady and suffocating. As I tried to sleep, I imagined old Murray, someone robbed of her time, waiting for her next chance. Still, I told myself it was all in my head. Curiosity won the battle that night. When Grandma fell asleep in her rocking chair, I crept into the living room, guided by the cold glow of the moon leaking through the curtains. I dragged a chair under the pendulum clock and climbed up, my small fingers trembling as I pulled open the glass case. "What are you hiding?" I whispered. The ticking felt louder with the door open, as if the clock had a heartbeat. I grinned and moved the hands forward, forcing midnight to arrive early. The clock answered with 12 heavy chimes. The house seemed to hold its breath. The wind stopped. Even the pine trees outside stood still. I climbed down, suddenly uneasy, but it was too late. I had set something in motion, and the 13th chime had not yet come. I woke to the sound of the clock, not 12 chimes. 13. Each strike echoed through the hallway like a hammer on frozen bone. I counted them, heart racing, unable to breathe. Then came the noises. A crash from the kitchen, a whisper slipping beneath my bedroom door. Footsteps that were too slow, too deliberate to belong to Grandma. I hid under my blanket, trembling, wishing I could turn back the clock. Literally, when silence finally returned, I crept to the hallway. The house looked untouched, yet I felt watched. The clock's pendulum swayed gently, even though no draft stirred the air. I wanted to wake Grandma. I wanted to confess, but fear kept my mouth shut. Morning sunlight did nothing to warm the house. Grandma called for her dog, Baxter, again and again, growing frantic. We found him by the back door, stiff as marble, eyes wide open and glazed with frost. I stared at him, unable to speak. Grandma fell to her knees and whispered, "The clock is collecting." I asked her what she meant, but she didn't answer. She just held Baxter and cried. All day, she avoided the living room. I avoided mirrors, afraid of what I might see behind me. Guilt gnawed at my stomach. I wanted to pretend it was just an old dog, but deep down I knew the 13th chime had taken something, and it wasn't finished. The house felt colder, as if autumn had crept indoors. Grandma barely spoke, her footsteps unsteady on the wooden stairs. I tried to stay close to her, afraid of the silence, afraid of the clock. 2 nights later, I heard a scream. I ran to the staircase and found Grandma at the bottom, her body twisted, her breath fading. I begged her to stay awake, but her eyes were already dimming. "Stop the count," she whispered. "Repay the memory." I asked how, what memory, what debt, but her voice slipped away. The clock chimed once. Just once. I've heard many sounds in my life, but nothing has ever felt as final as that single chime. At Grandma's funeral, I found myself staring at the living room clock. It refused to move past 11:59. The minute hand quivered like a bird trapped beneath glass. Trembling violently, I touched it, but the cold brass burned my fingers. Each tick felt like a heartbeat slowing, a pulse stretching into eternity. That night, sleep was impossible. Old Murray appeared in my dreams, standing beside the clock, her eyes dark, patient, unblinking. I tried to hide, but every hallway of my childhood home stretched longer, shadows twisting like smoke. I woke in my bed, drenched in sweat, the sound of a faint tick echoing behind me. Days passed, but the clock stayed frozen, as if time itself refused to move without her final chime. I began to see reflections where none should be. I'd catch movement in mirrors, the shape of a tall woman standing just behind me, smiling. I realized that what the clock wanted wasn't just my memories. It wanted me to remember, and I was forgetting too slowly. The clock followed me into adulthood. Whispers echoed in empty hallways. Doors creaked open, closing on their own. Sometimes I caught glimpses in reflective surfaces, old Murray, waiting silently, measuring my steps. I tried ignoring it, hoping time would heal, but each day the sense of being watched grew unbearable. I unplugged the clock, hid it in the basement, but the ticking persisted. It was faint, yet insistent, a reminder that the final chime still awaited. One memory was owed, and it would collect. I saw it in my dreams. 2. The final chime stretched across rooms, calling, demanding, refusing to let me forget. I wondered if it had ever really left Grandma's house, or if it had always been waiting for me. The clock was no longer an object. It was a shadow attached to me, a relentless presence reminding me that debts never vanish. Now, the clock sits in my basement, unplugged. Its hands remain motionless, but every night at 11:59, the pendulum quivers. I hear the faintest chime, as if it remembers every mistake, every debt, every stolen second. I feel it, drawing closer. Every shadow bends toward the ticking. Every breath carries its presence. Mirrors show someone standing behind me, closer each night, waiting. I know the 13th chime will come. I can't stop it. And when it does, it will claim the final memory. Perhaps my own. Time has always been its servant, and I, its last debt. The basement is quiet, the air thick, the clock poised. Midnight approaches, and I am ready, though I know I will never leave its sound behind. I walk past that house every day. People say it was renovated, repainted, restored, but I know they're lying, because the green window is still cracked in the exact same place, and sometimes I still see someone standing behind it. Sometimes I see myself. My father always said Salem remembers. The streets, the bricks, even the air holds on to things. I used to laugh whenever he warned me about the old green house at the end of Hawthorne Street, the one with peeling paint and ivy strangling the porch rails. He'd say, "Don't mock the dead. Son, they listen." 17-year-old me didn't believe in curses or ghosts. To me, the house was just another relic from the witch trial tours that brought tourists every fall. My friends and I used to bike past it, daring each other to go closer. The windows were all boarded up, except one, the green one. It was cracked right through the middle, like a scar. Even then, I felt something wrong about it, the kind of wrong that hums under your skin. But I ignored it, because back then, fear was just a story adults told to keep us home after dark. Halloween in Salem, it's different. Tourists in fake cloaks, fog machines on porches, the whole town pretending it's haunted. My friends, Ben, Caleb, and Ryan, thought it'd be fun to make it actually scary. We bought cheap fireworks, the kind that smelled like gunpowder and guilt, and decided to light them behind the cemetery. Ben was the one who said it first. "Let's mess with the greenhouse. His grin was wide, wild. I should have said no. Instead, I said, "You're on." The street was empty when we got there. The house looked darker than the rest. The porch swallowed in shadow. We crept closer, laughing too loud, pretending not to be nervous. The air felt thicker, heavy, like before a thunderstorm. Ryan whispered, "Bet you won't throw one on the porch." I didn't even think. I lit the fuse, sparks hissing in my hand, and tossed Italiana. For a moment, I felt powerful, like we'd woken something up. The firework hit the porch and exploded in a bloom of red. We cheered, expecting flames to climb the old wood. But instead, the fire twisted, not outward, but inward, like it was being sucked through the cracks. The air turned sharp. Sulfur burned my nose. I remember the light, a flash that didn't fade naturally, like lightning caught in a jar. Then, silence. Ben started laughing, saying, "Guess it's fireproof." But my eyes went up to the window. The green one. Someone was standing there. A woman. Her face was pale, almost glowing. Her hair hung like wet rope, and her eyes were black, all the way through. I blinked, and she was gone, just the cracked glass reflecting the street light. We ran before anyone could say another word, but they smelled that sulfur stink followed me all the way home. I scrubbed my hands that night until they turned red. Still, couldn't wash it off. Ben didn't show up to school the next day. When I finally called him, his voice sounded weak, shaky. "Dude, something's wrong with my hands." I biked over, thinking he was being dramatic. But when he opened the door, I froze. His palms were blistered, pink, raw, like he'd pressed them against a hot stove. He swore he didn't. "It happened overnight," he said. I woke up screaming. His mom thought it was a reaction to something chemical, ichnobiot. That smell from the greenhouse still lingered in my head, sulfur and smoke. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing faint cracks in my walls, like wood expanding in the cold. When I finally looked out my window, I saw the greenhouse at the end of the street. The upstairs light flickered once, then the green window glowed faintly, as if something inside was breathing. 3 days later, Caleb went down in the middle of gym class. One moment, he was laughing. The next, his whole body hit the floor, twitching. Foam pooled at his mouth. Everyone froze. The teachers screamed for help. They said later it wasn't epilepsy. No history, no trauma, no trigger. I went to the hospital that night. Caleb was pale, silent, eyes half open, and his fingers twitched in a slow, deliberate rhythm, like he was tapping on glass. When I got home, I asked my dad about the greenhouse. He looked at me with this fear I'd never seen in him before. "You kid stirred something that was better left buried," he said. "Don't go near that place again." But it was too late. I felt it already. The wrongness was spreading, like whatever we woke up was still reaching for us. It started with the dreams, always the same. I'm in my room, but it's colder than it should be. I can't move, can't speak, and then I feel it. Someone sitting on the edge of my bed, a whisper, right next to my ear. The window is still open. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, gasping, certain someone had just leaned away from me. My dad said it was guilt, stress, but I knew that voice. It wasn't in my head. It was too close. One night I caught my reflection in the mirror after waking up. My face looked normal, but my mouth was still moving, whispering something I couldn't hear. I smashed the mirror. The pieces hit the floor, each one showing that same cracked green window, like it had been waiting there, inside every reflection. It was late afternoon when I saw it. The sun was low, turning the glass a deep green that shimmered like water. I stopped my bike, staring at the cracked window. For a moment, I thought I saw movement, my own reflection, faint but clear. I waved, and it waved back. A second too late. At first, I laughed it off. A trick of the light, maybe. But then the reflection smiled. I didn't. I felt the air around me drop in temperature, like the warmth had been pulled away. The crack in the window pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. I backed away slowly, refusing to turn my back on it. Every step I took, the reflection mimicked, until I turned the corner. That night, my mirror at home showed the same thing. When I lifted my hand, it hesitated again, 10 couched up, and smiled. I started digging through old records at the library. Salem keeps its ghosts in paper form. Trial transcripts, burial lists, old curses turned into tourist stories. One name kept coming up. Mercy, executed in 1692. Accused of keeping her silence while others confessed. The greenhouse was built on her land. A local historian said she cursed anyone who disturbed her sacred quiet. Sulfur burns, seizures, all listed in witness accounts from that year. I felt sick, because everything matched. When I looked into the mirror that night, I didn't see my room behind me. I saw the green window. My reflection pressed its hand to the glass. My breath fogged the mirror, and words appeared through the mist. Let me in. Years passed. I moved away, tried to forget, but Salem has a way of calling people back. Last month, I returned from my father's funeral. Hawthorne Street hadn't changed much, but the greenhouse, it looked newer, restored. Fresh paint, fixed porch, except for one thing, the window. The green glass was still cracked. I walked closer, telling myself it was fine, that it was just old glass. Then I saw movement. Someone was standing behind it. I stepped forward and froze. It was me. The reflection smiled. Slowly, it lifted a hand and pressed it to the inside of the glass. My hand lifted too, shaken. The crack between us lined up perfectly, splitting both our faces in half. And when I turned to leave, I saw the faintest movement from the corner of my eye. My reflection didn't move at all.